Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear grade 11 students, how are you doing? Today we're going to do literature, and the title of today's lesson is From the Iroquois Constitution. From the Iroquois Constitution. And let's begin with the definition of Constitution. What is Constitution? The Iroquois Constitution is a political document, so it's a political document that defines the structure and practices of a political organization. Again, the Iroquois Constitution is a political document that defines the structure and practices of a political organization, which is the Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois Confederacy. Confederacy, means union. One of the document's prominent features is its use of symbols. In the document, there are some symbols. A symbol, what is a symbol? A symbol is a person that symbolizes something, a place or an animal, an object that represents something else, often an abstraction. For example, in the Iroquois Constitution, a tree symbolizes the peace established among the uniting tribes. Let's read this excerpt. I am Dikanawida, and with the 5 nations confederate lords, I plant the tree of the great peace. So it's not a real tree, it's a symbol that symbolizes peace. Some symbols have a fixed meaning, representing the same thing in every context. For example, a national flag is such a symbol. A national flag is a symbol for patriotism or the love of one's country or loyalty to one's country. Other symbols have meanings that change depending on their context. Often, symbols carry an emotional quality that affects people more than an abstract or the abstract ideas alone. And when I say peace, and I resemble peace to a tree which has branches and shade and so on, this makes the idea clearer for us. As you read the Iroquois Constitution, think about the abstract ideas the symbols convey and how they intensify the emotional impact. Let's move on to the following page. From the Iroquois Constitution. Who are the authors of the Iroquois Constitution? The Iroquois Constitution, or the Iroquois, or we can say the Iroquois, are a group of Native American tribes. Again, the Iroquois are a group of Native American tribes with closely related languages, so they have almost the same language, cultural traditions, and other things different things they share many different things like the language and the culture or the traditions. They often call themselves the people of the Longhouse. So what do the Iroquois tribes call themselves? The people of the Longhouse. Why? A reference to the long communal homes in which they traditionally lived. They used to have long houses in which the extended families lived. The Iroquois united in the 16th century or perhaps earlier, when, according to legend, a mystic and prophet named Dikanawida, so this is a mystic or a religious person or a prophet named Dikanawida, traveled from village to village in what is now upstate New York, encouraging the tribes to stop fighting and band together and unite together. The result was a confederacy, a union or united group often called the 5 nations. The confederacy or the union initially included the Seneca. These are the 5 nations which are the components of this unity or this union. Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Mohawk tribes. These are the 5 nations. In 1722, a 6th tribe, the Tuscarora, joined the group. So they are known as the six groups or the six nations now. Again, their names are the Seneca, the Cayuga, the Onondaga, the Oneida, the Mohawk, and the Tuscarora tribes. A colonial power, I think, as you know, this union will be a strong, let's say, entity, even though their numbers were relatively small. Unification made the Iroquois a powerful force in the colonial era. They gained control over many other Native American tribes. They could control because they are unified, and kept the Dutch and British from spreading much beyond the New York's Hudson River. They stopped the Dutch and the British from spreading much beyond New York's Hudson River. They often fought the French, who had allied with their enemies. So the French allied with the enemies of these five nations or these six nations, and this is why they fought the French. Their enemies were called the Algonquins and Hurons. The Iroquois, in turn, allied with the British, who were fighting the French, helping them win the French and Indian War. The American Revolution divided the Iroquois, while most tribes remained loyal to the British, the Oneida and some Tuscarora supported the colonists. After the war, some Iroquois settled in Canada, and many Oneida moved to Wisconsin in the northwest of New York. The Great Binding Law, the agreement that united the Iroquois, established a framework of laws and practices that helped make them the most highly organized Native American political body in colonial North America. So they were the most highly organized entity among the Native American tribes in North America. Why? Because of this constitution. Known as the Great Binding Law or Great Law of Peace. The Great Binding means unification. The Great Binding Law or the Law of Peace. It was passed down. These are two other names of the Iroquois Constitution. It was also called the Great Binding Law or Great Law of Peace. Again, Great Binding Law or Great Law of Peace. It was passed down orally for generations and recorded in shell beads called wampum. We talked about wampums before, that served as a memory device for oral recitation. So they used to tell these or the articles of these laws orally and used the shell beads as reference. The current version, now often called the Iroquois Constitution, was written down, was committed to paper in the 19th century after the founding of the United States of America, about maybe 100 years after that. And let's stop here, and this is the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much.